Hello guys, welcome back to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to do a simple example to cover all the different methods that we talked about in the previous tutorial. So we are going to make use of those methods and will try to get more information related to a particular exception. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I am going to go ahead and write a simple query which is going to retrieve the name of the lead record. So select name from lead, limit is 1. Limit is 1. And whatever the value is returned, I am going to store it into this variable here called L is the name of the variable. So I'm going to store it in this particular variable. Then the next thing is I'm going to fetch the description for the lead as well. But the problem here is we are going to fetch the description. DES is the variable. Description. But the problem here is we are not fetching the description in the query here. We are only fetching the name field, but we are trying to fetch the description and we are going to store those description field value in this particular variable. So this particular line is going to throw an exception because we discussed about it earlier. It is going to throw an exception. And because we are trying to fetch the description field, which is not retrieved from the query. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead, and since it is going to throw an exception, I'm going to handle the exception here using the try catch block. So I'm going to write all these statements inside of this try block. And then I'm going to have a catch block at the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and not specify a particular catch. First I will write the catch. Now these brackets. Let's copy this, paste here. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and generalize this catch block by using this exception E here. And now inside of this catch block, I'm going to go ahead and make use of this all the exception method that we discussed earlier. So here I'm going to say system.debug. And what kind of exception it is? So I'm going to say exception type caught. And what method I can use here? And here I can say e.of, there is method available called get type name. So this particular method will return me the type of the exception. So what kind of the exception it is. Then the next thing that we have is I also discuss about the get message method, which basically returns me a message for the user. So it's going to return me in a simple format or in a simple English, or it is going to tell me the exception message. So here I am saying I am calling the e.of get message. And the third method that I'm going to call will be the get cause method. Means what will be the cause for this particular exception. So here I'm going to call the cause method So I'm going to say e dot of get cost. This is the name of the method. And then what I have here is the fourth thing that I'm going to discuss is the line number. So I'm going to go ahead. Line number. So I'm going to go ahead and say e dot of get line number. And then we have is a stack trace system dot of debug stack trace plus e dot of get stack trace. This is the another method that we have. Now, what is this method known? You will get to see in the result. Each of these method is going to return you something. So these are all the methods that we discussed in the previous tutorial. We have the get type name, which basically returns you the type of the exception. This e dot of get message will return you a message for the regarding the exception. Then the cause of the method will return using this get cause. Line number, it will tell you the what exact line number has thrown this exception. And then this stack trace. So these are the methods that we are calling inside of the catch block. And then this particular line number, the exception will be thrown, and that exception will be cached using this catch block. And since what is come inside of the catch block, it will execute these statements. So let's go ahead and see what is the outcome of this program. So when you hit the execute button here, and if you click on this debug only, you are going to see these 5 different statements. So here you can see that first output is get type name. So what is the type of the exception? It is S object exception. That is the type of the exception. So this particular method will return you what kind of exception it is. If it's a DML exception or a math exception or a S object exception or a list exception, or so what kind of exception it is. So this particular method will return you the type of exception. Then this e dot of get message will return you the message related to the exception. So it tells you the messages S object row was retrieved via SOQL without querying the requested field, which is lead dot of description. So you're trying to use this particular field here, but you are not querying that field through this query here. So that's why it threw an exception. Now the next thing is get cause. There is no particular cause for this exception. So this is equals to null right now. Then you have the line number. As you can see here, this particular line number is responsible for throw an exception. So it's a line number here is 4. So that's why this method returns you 4. Then you have this stack trace string. So basically, probably they give you the stack trace. So it tells you the stack trace is anonymous block line 4 column 1. So this particular is the one which is causing the exception. So it gives you the stack trace here saying that, hey, this particular block, this try block, and you have at line number 4, it's the one which is responsible for this exception. So this is how you can use all these methods related to the exception, and you can get more information about the exception. So if you go back to this presentation of the get common exception methods, 5 important methods as I see you in the previous tutorial: get cause, get line number, get message, get stack trace string, and then get type name. So those are the methods which are available for the exceptions. So let's meet in next tutorial. Till then, have a good day. Bye.